Do you guys remember when the Puss in Boots franchise, such as it is, was just a joke? It was just a cash grab spin-off of a overall better franchise? When it was something not to be taken seriously? Because I certainly do. I think I saw the first one, which I'm fairly certain is the only other movie in this specific series. I don't think they made another one before this one. And it was fine. It killed like an hour and a half of my time. It wasn't entirely unpleasant, but I don't remember anything about it except vaguely some of the supporting characters. Mostly Kitty Softpaws, who returns in this movie. But it was just a thing that existed. It was a thing that existed, and then we dismissed it and moved on from it collectively as a society. But then this movie comes along, and astonishingly, it is one of the best animated movies I've seen in years. I don't know if this is something that was conceived specifically as a Shrekverse movie, for lack of a better term, or if they had an idea, so the people behind this had an idea, and then they were handed the sequel to the Shrek spinoff. And they're like, I can make this work. I can make this work with my idea. But whatever the idea was behind this, whatever the thought process was behind this, it's absolutely brilliant. Because this does the usual Shrek thing of having characters from different fairy tales all crammed together into the same universe. Like, the primary antagonists of this are Little Jack Horner, though don't let him catch you calling him that, and Goldilocks and the Three Bears. And it makes pretty effective use of those characters, though more so it makes effective use of, like, mythology. Jack Horner in this is a hoarder of magical artifacts who has a whole bunch of recognizable magical creatures and artifacts from different stories, up to and including the Sword and the Stone, but with the stone still attached, which I thought was hilarious. And also, not literally Jiminy Cricket, but Jiminy Cricket. And like Goldie's backstory as somebody who wandered into the bear's house because she had nowhere else to go is an integral part of her character. But like, they do things with them that I never expected that they would even attempt to do in a movie that's overall pretty busy and bloated. Like, there's a lot going on in this thing. The primary plot of this one is that, in sort of an analog for, like, reaching upper ages, Puss in Boots, who, I can't call him Puss, that sounds really stupid, so I'm going to have to use his full name the entire time. Puss in Boots, he's on his last life. He's been going around adventuring recklessly, ignoring the risk of his actions, and he has thrown away 8 of his 9 lives. And between being so reckless with his lives and also having 9 lives, which is considered an affront by Death, he has attracted the attention of Death, who is... I only don't call him the villain of this movie because he's not really the villain. He's not really a character so much as he is a force that the characters around him react to. But he's excellent. He's one of the best parts of this movie. He's this big wolf guy with sickles, cloak. I want to play him in D&D really bad. And thankfully, there's a couple of builds online to help me with that. So that's cool. That's going to be fun. But Puss in Boots has attracted the ire of Death. Puss in Boots, who had never been touched by a blade, because as reckless as he is, he's incredibly skilled. And without knowing who this person is, Death shows up and attacks him, and he can't do anything. He's cut for the first time in his life and runs away. He gets scared and runs away, despite just having sung a big, epic song about how he's a fearless hero. He is this character who, while being an outlaw in the eyes of the government, is a hero to the people. They consider him fearless, but really that fearlessness has just been recklessness. All this time, all his life, he's never actually been able to find real courage to do anything important because he's afraid of losing anything important. So he pushes everything away and builds this facade, this superficial facade. And immediately between the opening song where he sings about how fearless he is, the opening action sequence, which looks amazing, by the way, where he does some ridiculously cool action stuff, but because of his recklessness, ends up dying and losing his 8th out of 9 lives. And that scene with death, it tells you all of that about the character. You can read all of that into what's happened so far. So you understand why he runs off to live at what is basically a retirement home. It's a cat lady's house where he lives with a bunch of other cats. There's practically nothing to do. Everything is boring routine. It's an easy life. It's a life where he can survive. He can exist here. But that's not enough for him. But even though he hates everything about this, his fear is still so great that it isn't until he learns that there's a real fallen star wish out there somewhere that he can go and get to wish back his other 8 lives and go back to his old lifestyle that he actually leaves and becomes something of what he used to be. But even then, everything he does is driven by that fear. He reunites with Kitty Softpaws, his old love interest, and she doesn't understand what's going on with him. She doesn't understand what's up with him. But she wants that wish too for her own reasons. Everybody wants that wish for their own reasons. Jack Horner wants it so that he can become the supreme arbiter of all magic. Because, and I cannot stress this enough, he is just the worst. He is someone who grew up with literally everything he could have wanted. But because he wasn't magical, he hated all things magical. And now he hoards it. He's become this crime boss who hoards magic. Because he was too selfish to just live and cherish the blessings that he had. And Goldie wants it because she wants a family. She's an orphan. She wants a family. But Kitty wants it for her own reasons too. And she ends up teaming up with Puss in Boots again to go after this wish. And it's so cool. Once they get to the dark forest where the fallen star fell, I guess the forest grew up around it afterwards as a result of the star's magic. The forest literally reshuffles itself into exactly what the characters need to experience to learn the lessons they need to learn to realize that they don't actually need the wish. And it's so obvious that that's what's happening, but it's so visually interesting, and the way the characters react to these situations is still so cool and strong, and you learn so much about them as they're interacting with them, that the fact that it's obvious doesn't matter. The fact that it's obvious just streamlines our thought process into realizing, oh, hey, that's what's happening here, and then you could take in the rest of what's going on. And then at the end, all of the characters realize that they already have what they wanted. Like Goldie, for example, realizes that she has an adopted family that's just as real as any other family, and she loves them and wouldn't want to replace them. Kitty finally gets her wish and finds someone she can really rely on, because up until all of this happened and he grew and changed the person, Puss in Boots was not that person, even though she wanted him to be. And Puss in Boots, through reuniting with this person that he cared about and meeting another character, a dog character who starts the movie off with no name, and he's one of those dogs that's like so ugly that they're cute, but he is objectively kind of ugly, and he's a little annoying, but he means well. Through meeting with and reuniting with these characters, he's discovered that he doesn't need that superficial life, because he's not only willing to build a more substantial, more real life with these people, but he's willing to fight for it in a way that he was never willing to fight for that other life. Because when death comes for him again, he stands and he fights. And he declares that he will fight for this new life. And suddenly, death doesn't hate him anymore because he is cherishing the life that he has. The only one who doesn't change and grow as a character is Jack. But like, it's so well done. He's this irredeemable bastard. You don't want to see him get redeemed. And he doesn't. And the way that they deal with him is so appropriate too. Like, I'm not going to spoil it because I thought it was my favorite. It was my favorite aspect of the movie that didn't directly deal with Puss in Boots as a character. So I'm not going to spoil it, but it was absolutely perfect. I loved it a lot. Though, as cool as this movie was, as cool as all of these themes were, as cool as all the action is just fantastic. I'm sure I've thrown some of it up over the course of this review already for you guys to see, but the action in this is just spectacular. That initial fight against the giant and the final action sequence of the movie, like the extended action sequence where they're all running for the wish, and then the fight against death, the final fight against death where Puss in Boots actually finally takes his stand. They in particular are fantastic, but the whole movie looks good. And yet, in spite of that, I think the thing I liked the most about it was a scene where Death pops up for, I think it was like the second time, in the forest while they're undergoing some of the forest trials. And Puss in Boots runs, and it's at the worst time because Kitty's relying on him, and she sees him run away to save himself. But he runs, and his little dog friend, who does get a name, I'm not going to spoil that either, but he does get a name by the end of the movie, he follows. His dream is to be a therapy dog, to help people. And Puss in Boots is clearly having a panic attack. And it's like this super uncomfortably realistic portrayal of one. And his little dog friend just lays there with him and helps bring him down from that. And it felt a little hard to watch at first, but the end, seeing this very real means of treating such a thing, of helping a person to cope with such a thing, there was this catharsis to it. It was a beautiful little scene. And the moment where the meaningful connection is built between these two characters, where the affection up to this point had really only been one way. But the emotional stuff in this is just strong in general. All the stuff around Goldilocks and her finding her family was beautiful too. The emotion behind that was beautiful too. Like, you're just waiting for her to realize that the family she always wanted has been there the whole time. Because you genuinely, like, she's a likable character, and they're all likable in their own ways too. The bears, they're a little one note, each of them, but they're all very likable too. But you like her, and the voice acting on her is really strong, and she's got a cool design, and you want to see her succeed because she is so appealing as a character just right out the gate. And so you're just waiting for the moment where she realizes that she has what she's always wanted, because you're waiting for the catharsis that comes from that too. And it was also extremely satisfying. In the end, this is a super appealing, super colorful, super fun movie that kids are going to get so much out of. But you guys know how I live for that cool kids shows that do more with the premise stuff, right? It's why I like my Gravity Falls. It's why I like my Steven Universe. So I'm ecstatic to say that, man, this movie, it asks such interesting questions. Primarily, it asks the question, what is real? What is a real family? What is real courage? What is really worth fighting for? Stuff like that. I loved it. I loved it a lot. I'm actually kind of want to go rewatch it literally right now after having talked about it. And I've already watched it like 3 times through preparing for this review. I don't know what else to say about it. It's such a good movie. It's a surprisingly, stunningly good movie. And it contains a few life lessons that I think even a lot of adults could stand to learn. And straight up, it's going to be one of those movies that if your kids watch it now, they are going to grow up loving this movie and revisit it at some point down the line and realize that all these themes are here. And they're going to get that cool moment where they realize they get to experience this movie anew all over again, because there's so much more to absorb from it now, so much more that they can understand. And that is such a good feeling. I love that feeling. Like, I haven't done the rating movies thing for a really long time because my rating system's a little weird. I never go all the way up to a 10 out of 10 because I don't feel like anything is flawless. But this might be the rare example of something that, for what it is, for what it was trying to be and do, it's a 10 out of 10. It's perfect. Also, shout out to the scene at the end. I just gotta say it. After the wishing star fades, and the characters are kind of looking up at the sky, and then we look up at the sky and we see the twinkle of a star up there, which could just mean that the wishing star went back into the sky. But I like to take it to mean that the thing that crashed, the big star-shaped thing that was their arena for their final confrontation, that was never the wishing star. The wishing star was always up there, and its means of granting wishes was to bring people through this forest and help them learn about themselves. That's my takeaway from it, and if that's what they intended, that's absolutely brilliant. So special shout out to that. You know, just to round things off. Like, that's the kind of nuance we're talking about here. Just a very, very good movie. You should watch it if you haven't. Like, I want a sequel to this. I want a sequel to this with the same team. But also, I kind of don't, because the happily ever after that the characters got at the end of this one was almost too good to spoil with that. That's how good this movie is. As per usual, though, guys, what did you think of Puss in Boots: The Last Wish, if you have seen it? Let's get a discussion going in the comment section down below. And while you're down there, you might as well like the video, share it with anyone else who you think would enjoy my content, subscribe if you haven't. You can also check out links to my various social medias as well as the many ways you can help out the channel. Those will be in the video description, but either way, this has been AJ22, and I will talk to you guys later.